You're listening to Aimee Keeps It Creepy, the podcast where I share my obsession with true crime and the paranormal with you. I'm your host, Aimee Brooks. Death by stabbing, death by beheading, death by a homemade flamethrower. Better mop up the guts and get out the bleach. Make sure to hide your dead wife in the shed. Perhaps take off the blood-stained Santa suit, because that kind of looks suspicious. This is the Bloody Christmas Special, where I count down the 12 most heinous holiday homicides. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, creepsters. I hope this season brings you nothing but magic and joy. I myself love this time of year. My kids still believe in Santa, and I have introduced the elf on the shelf despite my husband's protest. He thinks it's lame. But I'm getting into it. Although, I am trying to keep it rated G for the kiddos. When imagining the trouble my elf gets into, my mind always goes to sex, drugs, and horror. But that doesn't exactly bring Christmas cheer to the little ones. I have to scale down my elfin fun just a little bit, keep it clean. My elf was kidnapped, though, by Elsa and held for ransom, though. Once he used my bra as a hammock, but that's as bold as he got. I'd love to hear your elf on the shelf ideas, though. There are some crazy, more adult-themed elf on the shelf ideas that I think are absolutely hysterical. Please share them with me at Creepy Podcast on Instagram. Now, most of us may associate Christmas with happy moments, family, presents, baby Jesus stuff. I know I do. And the food is great too. I am currently on the sugar cookie sparkling rosé diet, which works, by the way. I lost 6 pounds and I smell like buttercream all the time. I'm delicious and svelte. But for some, this day will forever be remembered as the worst day of their lives. My dad, who you know was a police detective, always had to work on Christmas Eve. Most cops do. Because that is a big day for calls. People go buck nutty on Christmas. There are a lot of emotions and drinking and then more emotions. The number one call they have to respond to on Christmas, and most holidays actually, are domestic disturbances. And tragically, sometimes those calls end up being homicide calls. So today, I thought I would spread some creepy cheer by counting down the 12 most heinous holiday homicides. Now, when confabulating my list, I was shocked to find a common theme between the murders. Most of these murders are committed by family members, and most of them are perpetrated by men. Although I do have a really great female story to share with you, you're going to love. The crimes are all very different and uniquely insidious. But there is definitely a commonality with these murders. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please DM me on Instagram at Creepy Podcast or on my personal account at Miss Aimee Brooks. Aimee is spelled A-I-M-E-E, just to confuse you. Please check out the Aimee Keeps It Creepy website, creepypodcast.com, which has a ton of content to check out, including videos from my YouTube channel, where I share my paranormal adventures. I am also posting on creepypodcast.com all of the photos related to the murders discussed today. You don't want to miss that. Definitely want to check those out. So grab an almond nog and a sugar cookie and join me for some creepy Christmas fun. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and my new YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. We're going to start the countdown with an internet dating story from hell. I always love internet dating stories. I admit, when I was single, I was on a certain singles website for a hot minute until the company stole my profile picture and used it in their advertising. Totally legal for them to do because they own the photos on their website, but annoying. Hey, isn't that the chick from Monster Man? So embarrassing. I immediately removed my profile because I don't need to be the poster child for anything, including just a Scorp girl looking for love. Yeah. Let's start the countdown. Heinous holiday homicides #1. Plenty of fish date from hell. Teacher Katie Locke, 23, was murdered when she went on a first date with Carl Langdale, who she had met on the dating site Plenty of Fish. He had falsely told her that he was very successful and had his own law firm, but in reality had spent 2 years in and out of psychiatric hospitals, battling mental illness, trying to work on his increasing obsession of hurting women. Lovely. And by the way, I think most people augment their profiles a wee bit. It's hard to see yourself encapsulated into a bio blurb without adding some creative adjectives. Successful, sexy, and single sounds a lot better than psychotic, schizo, necrophiliac. Katie and Carl decided to have their first date on Christmas Eve in London. I guess an internet first date is better than being alone on Christmas. And London on Christmas Eve, it does sound romantic. And it must have been going well because they ended up at a 4-star hotel, the Theobald's Park Hotel in Hertfordshire. The date turned evil when Carl decided to act on his violent fantasies and strangled Kate, proceeding to have sex with her corpse. What a sicko. He then took pictures and wrapped her dead body in bedsheets and a duvet, dumping it in some bushes behind the hotel. Not sure if this hotel deserves its 4-star rating. How did no one notice Carl dragging a corpse wrapped in a blanket down the hall, into an elevator, down another hall, out the door, through the parking lot? That is some pretty crap security. Katie was found on Christmas Eve. Only 9 months before the murder, Langdale had told a community psychiatric nurse that he wanted to cut a girl's throat. It's fantastic how the medical community continues to fail the public by letting these psychos out into the community and become predators. Am I right? It's so frustrating when you hear these stories. The hospital was investigated when experts stated that Katie's murder was 100% preventable. Of course it was. The hospital's administrators had their own percentages. They stated that 97% of people only make threats, and only 3% carry the threats through. I think those numbers are bogus, and dudes that fantasize about hurting women eventually act on their sicko fantasies in one way or another. And a lot of them don't get caught, by the way. But I guess the NHS is going to rely on those effed up statistics. Incidentally, ladies, always check your date's bio on social media to weed out the psychos. This creep had described himself as an ordinary, decent human on Facebook. Very odd wording. Carl Langdale was sentenced to life in prison. #2. A grim gift left under the Christmas tree. Patty Michelle White was down on her luck when the aunt of her ex-boyfriend, Michelle O'Dowd, offered for the woman to stay at her place. Michelle was delighted at the Christmas spirit being shown to her, but White had an ulterior motive. One involving stealing all her new housemates' credit cards, killing her, and leaving her among a trashed Christmas tree to look like a bungled burglary. The scene was discovered by Michelle's twin brother, Phil, who went to check in on her after she failed to show up for work. There, among a pile of wrapped Christmas presents, he saw his sister's foot sticking out of a big pile of Christmas gifts. Oh my God. Buried under the gifts was his sister's cold body, her bloody face covered with a towel. Patty White had beaten and strangled the 67-year-old and left her among the gifts. While this story is morbid beyond belief, the saddest part is that it could have been prevented. Neighbors in the gated community were on record saying they had heard screaming the night of O'Dowd's murder, but no one thought to call the police. Oh my God. Patty got 45 to life. #3. The Star Wars murder plot. In 2014, Samina Imam was having an affair with a married man named Roger Cooper, a Costco store manager. She was only one of his 3 lovers. This guy got around, and if you look at his picture, he's nothing to write home about. Check out his photo on creepypodcast.com. Now, all of these chicks of his worked at Costco, and it's unclear whether they knew about one another or if Roger was playing them all. Nonetheless, what is going on at Costco? I had no idea it was such a hookup place. Discount box stores make people hot. I know I like a bargain. Samina wrongly believed that her and Roger would make their relationship public in 2015 and live happily ever after. Not sure about the date. Why wait until 2015? Why not tell the wife immediately if they were really going to make a go of it? Well, like so many other married men, Roger had zero intention of leaving his wife and was just looking for some on the side. Making empty promises to women was the best way for him to score. Samina eventually got unhappy with the timeline and threatened to go to Roger's wife directly. For Roger, there was only one way to keep this little extramarital secret: kill Samina. He enlisted the help of his brother David, an Army vet and fellow creepy bastard. The two went into serious murder plotting mode, creating secret codes with a Star Wars inspiration. I think they got into it because they planned for months, constantly texting each other about the plan. They figured poison was the best bet. So the men bought poisonous metals and identified a shallow grave. Why poisonous metals? Was that a Star Wars thing? Okay, you've got to DM me on that one. I'm very curious. I'm on Instagram at creepypodcast. They first attempted to have David abduct Samina on December 12th, exchanging messages like, "Death Star complete," and "Stay on target, you are expected, Vader." So lame. But the plan failed. There are a couple of geniuses. No one could have figured these codes out. Whatever. Then on Christmas Eve, Roger and Samina arrived at David's home. The two men were 6'5" and 6'7" respectively. Overpowered Samina, who was a petite 5'2". David smothered her with a rag soaked in chloroform, which was her cause of death. Her body was found buried in the woods. Bizarrely, her autopsy showed that a combination of metallic elements, including antimony, cadmium, tin, mercury, and arsenic, was also thought to have been administered to Samina in a liquid. That must have been the brothers' psycho-poisonous metallic brew they came up with. God, did they give her some kind of Christmas party shot? That could have not have tasted good. Roger and David were both found guilty of murder and are still sitting in jail. Number 4. 'Twas the night before Christmas and fire tore through the house. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1945, a fire destroyed the Soder home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. At the time, it was occupied by George Soder, his wife Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children. During the fire, George, Jenny, and 4 of the 9 children escaped. No remains of the other 5 children were found. And it would have been expected to find bones. Human bones remain even after bodies are burned. Bones don't disintegrate until they reach temps of at least 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,090 degrees centigrade. And that has to burn for 2 hours at that temp. Far longer and hotter than the house fire could have been. Mrs. Soder remembered that on the night of the fire, a strange woman called at 12:30 a.m., asking for an unfamiliar name. She could hear clinking glasses in the background, like a party, and the woman had an odd laugh that she recalled. Later that night, Mrs. Soder was awakened again by what sounded like a loud bang hitting the roof and then rolling off. I'm thinking maybe a Molotov cocktail? The Soders believed for the rest of their lives that their 5 missing children had survived. Their whereabouts were never determined. So, did they really die? George was a critic of Mussolini and the fascist government of Italy, and one conspiracy theory suggests that the Sicilian mafia took the children. The local coroner convened an inquest, which held that the fire was an accident caused by faulty wiring. Now, the Soders had just had the whole house rewired, and the Christmas lights remained on during the fire, almost until the fire burned the house to the ground. What a creepy sight. They believed the fire marshal had been paid off. Among the jurors at the inquest was a man who had threatened George that his house would be burned down and his children destroyed in retribution for his anti-Mussolini remarks. There were a couple of other strange things found at the house. The phone line at the house had been intentionally cut, not burned. Cut at the top of the 14-foot telephone pole. There was a ladder found nearby in a ditch by the property, and the Soders' car had been tampered with so that it could not start. As a result, the Soders were unable to call for help or drive to their neighbors for help during the fire. Very suspicious. Someone went to a lot of trouble. The Soders dedicated their lives to trying to find out what happened that Christmas. They never gave up hope that their kids had survived, and even put up a billboard offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to the recovery of any of them. The Soders never rebuilt the home, instead converting the site into a memorial garden to their lost children. George and Jenny died, still believing their children could be alive. Number 5. A Christmas Rampage. Shortly before Christmas 1987, Ron Gene Simmons decided to kill all the members of his family. Nice. On the morning of December 22nd, he killed his wife Rebecca and eldest son Gene by shooting them with a .22 caliber pistol. And then killed his 3-year-old granddaughter, Barbara, by strangulation. By the way, that grandchild was also his daughter. Yes, his daughter, Simmons, had been sexually abusing one of his own daughters, and she had had a baby by him. What a sicko. This guy was married? What the hell was her story? She was a sicko too for letting all this abuse happen. This guy should have been locked up way before this murderous rampage. Simmons dumped the bodies in a cesspit that he had previously forced his children to dig. Simmons then waited for his other children to return home, and after their arrival, he told them he had presents for them, but wanted to give them one at a time. He killed his daughter, 17-year-old Loretta, whom Simmons strangled and held under the water in a rain barrel. The 3 other children, Eddie, Marianne, and Becky, were then killed in the same way. Simmons then sat in his house among the bodies for 4 days, leaving only to visit a local bar. Returning to the house, apparently oblivious to the corpses lined up around him, Homeboy spent the rest of the evening and the following day drinking beer and watching television. I wonder what he was watching. You often hear of murderers who kick back and watch television after they murder. What are they watching? Horror films, comedies, procedural dramas? I want to know. All right, there's more. Christmas came. On Christmas Day, 9 more relatives turned up to visit the Simmons family for Christmas celebrations, including Ronald Simmons' grandchildren. One can only imagine the reaction the 9 relatives had when Simmons opened the door and the corpse smell wafted out. We will never know. They were all killed. Simmons was still PO'd that a certain receptionist who he was infatuated with had spurned his advances. He went into the office of the oil company where she worked and shot 2 executives, killing one and injuring the other. He then drove to a convenience store and former place of work and shot 2 more people, who would both luckily survive. Finally, he would do the same at the Woodland Motor Freight Company, shooting and wounding another woman. He then sat down and waited for police to arrest him. I guess he was done. In total, he took 16 people's lives that Christmas. The spree killing rocked the state. On the 25th of June, 1990, then Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton signed Simmons' execution warrant, and he was killed by lethal injection. Number 6. The infamous child beauty queen murder that still haunts America. JonBenet Ramsey's Christmas Day 1996 murder caused an enormous storm across America and the wider world. The 6-year-old's callous killer, or killers, have still not been identified. True crime buffs the world over have studied and obsessed over the case of the young girl killed, supposedly during a botched kidnapping. Countless documentaries, movies, books, and articles point fingers, but the mystery's never been solved. Tragically, the little girl took a blow to the head that broke her skull, and she had been strangled. A garrote was found tied around her neck. Many people accused JonBenet's parents. Her father, John, found the girl's body in the basement of their house around 8 hours after she was reported missing. Now, I always thought it was weird that the family called the cops thinking that their daughter was missing, but never looked around the house first. Don't you check the basement? I would have. Some looked to her older brother. There are a lot of accusations of the different child molesters and criminal types in the area, of course. Perhaps the eeriest suspect, though, is Bill McReynolds, a local man hired by the Ramseys to play Santa Claus at their Christmas parties in 1995 and 1996. I posted a picture of this dude on creepypodcast.com. He really looks like Kris Kringle. Even when he's not made up, a kid would 100% think he was Santa. McReynolds had last seen JonBenet 3 days before the murder. When interviewed, he told the Denver Post that when he first met JonBenet in 1995, he was struck by her smile. Her, quote, pensive, almost retiring demeanor and her angelic glow. Very strange. McReynolds also stated that JonBenet had given him a vial of gold glitter at both the 1995 and 1996 Christmas parties. He's further quoted as saying, "The stardust was all I took with me for good luck when I had first had my heart surgery last summer. Her murder was harder on me than my operation. She made a profound change in me. I felt very close to that little girl. I don't really have other children that I have this special relationship with, not even my own children or my own grandchildren. When I die, I'm going to be cremated. I've asked my wife to mix the stardust JonBenet gave me with my ashes. We're going to go up behind the cabin here and have it blow away in the wind." End quote. Okay, tell me that isn't a little weird. He sounds obsessed with her. There's more. Santa McReynolds had given JonBenet a card with the message, "You will receive a special gift after Christmas." Okay, what the hell does that mean? Huge red flag to me. No one, especially some dude with access to children, should be writing little secret notes to them. Weird. And Santa McReynolds' wife was also a suspect and a real creepy bitch. She had penned some weird and badly written play with eerie similarities to the case. The plot revolved around a little girl who was molested and murdered in her basement. Both Santa and Mrs. Santa were excluded as suspects due to their handwriting samples and blood. They did have to move, though. People totally found them suspicious and creepy, as do I. They moved to a small town in Massachusetts. McReynolds died in 2002, swearing innocence. It's a case that will perhaps never be solved, but remains open with the Boulder Police Department. Heinous holiday homicide number 7. The Dallas Christmas Killings. Okay, another Killer Santa story. Killer Santa Aziz Hasdanapana, who donned the festive red and white outfit in anticipation of his rampage on December 25th, 2011, entered his estranged wife's Dallas, Texas home and began shooting the family. They had just finished unwrapping presents. Oh. All in all, he murdered 6 people, including his wife and 2 children, before killing himself. The victims and 2 handguns were discovered in the kitchen and living room, with presents and wrapping paper littering the floor. Yazdanapana had been dealing with financial and marital issues, which detectives believe contributed to his mindset. Whatever, his wife didn't want to be married to him anymore. Get over it. He called 911 and told the operator, "Help, help, I am shooting people." What a psycho. "Oh, help, help, stop shooting people, a-hole. No one is making you do this." He then turned the gun on himself. Oh well. Police were on scene in 3 minutes. The 7 bodies, Aziz's suicide included, were found sprawled among presents, shredded wrapping paper, and the television still playing in the background. Wow. Can you imagine the law enforcement officers who had to walk in on that horror show on Christmas? Tragically, the final text Zaira Zauri, Yazdanapana's niece, would send would be to her boyfriend, annoyed that her uncle had shown up in a creepy Santa Claus suit. It said, "So we're here. We just got here and my uncle is here too, dressed as Santa. Awesome. Now he wants to be all fatherly and win Father of the Year because he effed up before." Number 8. Christmas Angel killed for kindness. Trisha McCauley, 46, was driving to a Christmas dinner in Washington, D.C., but she never made it. On the way, she decided to help a man who looked like he needed a lift. Oh, Trisha, no. She was an actress who had gotten a degree in herbal medicine and started an herbal line of products. She was loved by family and friends and described as a vibrant woman. And she totally looks like a sweetheart in her photo on creepypodcast.com. Why she stopped and let a strange man in her car, I will never understand. And for you ladies out there, do not think that you are obliged to help out some strange dude or even some hot dude, because a lot of young hot guys end up being serial killers. You don't owe them anything, and your safety is more important. Help out in other ways. Be a good Samaritan in a way that won't leave you vulnerable to being raped, tortured, and murdered. It wasn't until December 27th, 2016, that her dead body was found in her car. When officers unlocked the car, they found Trisha's body wedged between the rear and front seats, concealed from view. She had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled to death. Her legs were bound with a seatbelt. Dwayne Johnson had been driving her car around with her corpse inside. After he was arrested, he told investigators that on Christmas Day, Trisha had offered him a lift, and then they had consensual sex on a curb somewhere. Yeah, right, dude. Afterwards, he said the actress had become despondent and talked about killing herself. Uh-huh. I love it when murderers say that their victims did it to themselves. So basic. He said that she hung herself with the seatbelt. Of course she did. And what, he just watched her do it? Yeah, I'm sure the cops believed his story. Trisha had died from the combination of ligature strangulation and blunt force trauma. Her body also showed that she had been sexually assaulted. Girl put up a fight, though. Her body was covered in defensive wounds, including bruises and a broken nose. In the previous year before killing Trisha, Johnson had 6 arrests for theft and 1 for assault with intent. In December, he had been ordered to wear a GPS monitor, but had never gotten one. Good job, parole board. The day after killing Trisha, while her body was still in the car, Johnson robbed a CVS store. He later confessed to her murder and got 30. Number 9. The first and last Christmas photo. North Carolina tobacco farmer Charles Davis Lawson made his wife Fanny and their 7 children put on their Sunday best for Christmas Day morning, for they were to go into town and have a professional family photograph taken, a rare treat for such a poor family. This was 1929, and times were tough. Strangely, he had purchased all new clothes for the photograph, which was an odd thing for such a poor family to do, and very unlike Lawson to indulge in. Later that day, settling back home, Charles would set about methodically killing his entire family, except for the sole survivor, his son, whom he had sent into town for an errand. Oh my God, he planned this whole thing. It was totally premeditated. Lawson did the unthinkable. His 2 daughters, Carrie, 12, and Maybelle, 7, were on their way to their aunt and uncle's house when he shot them with a shotgun and followed up by bludgeoning them before hiding their bodies in the barn. He followed up by shooting his wife, Fanny, dead. Marie, 17, heard the gunfire and screamed while James, 4, and Raymond, 2, took to hiding. Lawson found Marie and shot her before killing the 2 boys and the baby daughter, Mary Lou, 4 months old. All of the family members were found positioned with their arms crossed and rocks behind their heads. Oh, like rock pillows? Neighbors who had heard the gunshots hurried to the farm and found the grisly scene. Lawson was nowhere to be seen. He had walked into the woods. The many people gathering were all witness to the last sound of gunshot that day when Lawson put a bullet to his own head. Charles Lawson's motive was never determined, although close family members claim that Fanny, Lawson's wife, had confided in them that she was concerned about the incestuous relationship that had developed between her husband and their daughter, Marie. Okay, you mean her husband was raping Marie. So that means she knew what was going on and did nothing. So evil. Anyway, Marie, it is supposed, had gotten pregnant. Marie had told her best friend what her father had been doing to her and that she was with child. What a horror show. Another creepy rapist who impregnated his daughter. Merry effing Christmas, guys. In a bizarre twist, shortly after the murders, Lawson's brother opened the home on Brook Cove Road as a tourist attraction. What fun! Let's go see the murder house. A cake that Marie had baked on Christmas Day was displayed on the tour. Oh, how creepy. They kept the cake she baked. Oh. Because visitors began to pick at the raisins on the cake to take as souvenirs, it was placed in a covered glass cake server for many years. Oh my God. They stole the raisins as souvenirs. People are so gross. Number 10. The Kill Bill Murder. Here's the only female Christmas killer on the list, and it's a good one. For my Australian creepsters, you might know this story. Danielle Kerr, 37, was obsessed with collecting human skulls and kept a crate of bones. Hey, come here and check out my crate of bones. Aren't I cool? Seriously? Who has a crate of bones lying around? She had told a neighbor that she was interested in some of the cat skulls in his backyard and had on several occasions mentioned she wanted to add a human skull to her collection. Okay, wait a bit. Her neighbor collects cat skulls? Who are these people? I lived in Hollywood for many years around the weirdest people on the planet, and no one ever showed me their crate of bones. The neighbor told her that she couldn't have any of his cat skulls and suggested that she go to the local cemetery and dig up a human skull for her own crate. Leave his crate of bones alone. Oh, weirdos, man. Such creepy people in the world. Oh, it's never a good sign when people are collecting human and cat bones. Ugh. Kara joked to her 47-year-old boyfriend, Damian Lewis. There was a movie named Kill Bill, and then formulated a plan to murder because she wanted to know what it would feel like. Not only was this woman completely deranged, she had a nice little drug addiction to methamphetamines, which made her even crazier. The couple decided their victim would be their friend and fellow ice head, William Bill Stevenson. Get it, Bill? Kill Bill. This poor guy was murdered for his name. On Christmas Day, 2013, the pair drove Stevenson out to the bushland. Kerr bashed Bill over the head with a rock, then stabbed him in the face, neck, and chest with a hunting knife. She also hit him with a tree branch. During the attack, Bill pleaded with her, "Please don't," repeatedly while she yelled, "Die, die." How horror show. What a scary thing to see before you die, some crazy chick yelling, "Die, die." And she looks crazy. Oh my God, you have to see the photos on creepypodcast.com. She has crazy eyes. That is a thing, by the way. I don't know how to describe it, but when you see someone with crazy eyes, you'll know it. Well, check her out, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Bill managed to get away, and ran for his life but was chased down in a car and repeatedly bashed with a branch by Care. Bill's body was then placed in the car's trunk and driven to Wellsford Forest, doused in fuel, and set aflame. A pitchfork was used to disperse Bill's burnt remains in various locations. Care had said she wanted to have sex with her boyfriend beside the dead body. Sexy. Not sure if they got to complete that task, and I'm not sure that I need to know. Daniel Care got 21 years. Number 11. Christmas Murder in Paradise, Pennsylvania. Stephanie Kalifner spent Christmas Eve 2014 concealed inside a bag in a shed, dead. After an argument with her husband of 3 years, Dustin Klopp, he knocked her unconscious, slit her throat with a knife, and then put an axe through her head repeatedly. She had also been sexually violated. It was unclear in the autopsy whether this had happened before or after she had died. I have my own suspicions. After cleaning up the crime scene and hiding the body, Klopp woke up their 2- and 5-year-old children to celebrate Christmas at their grandma and grandpa's house. Isn't that nice? Klopp allegedly made a confession to his father, who then drove him to the police department, where he confessed to the slaying. Luckily, the children were not witness to the death of their mother. After a failed suicide attempt in jail, where Klopp attempted to hang himself, it wasn't successful. Instead, he just hung there, losing oxygen to the brain and becoming brain dead. And here is our last heinous holiday homicide, number 12, the Santa suit slaughter. It was Christmas Eve, 2004, in the small town of Covina, just outside of LA. Parties dominated the neighborhood. 1129 East Knollcrest Drive had around 25 close friends and family enjoying each other's company. At around 11:30 p.m., a knock at the door came. Standing on the other side of the door? Santa Claus. At least that's what the 8-year-old girl who answered the door thought. But it wasn't St. Nick. It was a man named Bruce Jeffrey Pardo, the unstable and violent ex-husband of one of the women at the party. He definitely wasn't invited, and he was out for blood. It was only a week after his divorce had been finalized. Pardo was holding a 9mm pistol in one hand and a flamethrower in the other. A homemade flamethrower. I have a picture on creepypodcast.com. It's actually kind of badass looking, like something an action star would be holding. Not Santa, though. He also had 3 other handguns with him. Cruelly and methodically, he went about shooting his ex-wife Sylvia Ortega Pardo and anyone else he could aim at, including the 8-year-old girl who had answered the door. Then he took out the flamethrower and set the house ablaze. 9 people died, and 3 were badly injured. Pardo left, driving to his brother's house some 30 miles away. He had planned to detonate a series of handmade explosives and then make his escape to Canada. But the fire had caused his Santa suit to melt on him, causing severe 3rd-degree burns. Pardo decided to put a bullet in his head. The blaze, ignited by racing fuel from the flamethrower and fed by the festive light in 2 fireplaces, took 80 firefighters nearly 2 hours to extinguish. Many of the victims had to be identified through dental records. This killing spree will forever be known as the Covina Christmas Massacre. I hope I didn't put you off your sugar cookies too much. Remember to hang your stockings with care. Don't answer the door for anyone dressed as a fat, creepy elf. And please, be careful who you make merry with. It seems on Christmas, your killer would most likely be the guy sleeping next to you. Merry Christmas, creepsters. Do you have a creepy true crime or paranormal story that you would like to share on Aimee Keeps It Creepy? I know you do. Please email a brief description of your story to info@creepypodcast.com. I can't wait to get creeped out. Thank you for listening.
Toxic content.